Today we're going to be talking with Victor Buggy, a Dutchman. Dutchman is like, it's a Netherlands person, so
Right.
yeah.
I'm a Dane, I guess.
Dan
Danish from
Danish.
Denmark.
So you don't say like Dutchman or something like this.
No, no, we
Because we
say
have like
we are
Russian.
Danes.
Okay, Danes.
Yeah.
Famous Dane researcher from Denmark, and as I can remember, you live in close to some Copenhagen, right?
Well, no, I live in the second largest city in Denmark, which is called Aarhus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then my memory is just, not very good
No,
recently.
it's okay, man.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's easier for me to remember that you live in Moscow because, that's easy. The same
Okay.
with Copenhagen.
So you have a lot of things to share today, right? You screen sharing right now?
Oh, well, yeah, I guess I haven't had anything specifically planned. I only knew that we were going to talk with each other, but
Yeah, maybe just I just ask you the questions you've been researching about those ancient weapons. Maybe you've improved on this, field of research. What did you get new? Maybe some new footage of ancient weapons that changed your mind, or maybe left you in some conclusions.
well, I haven't actually progressed too much in that arena. I've been working a lot on the Starfort mapping with 13th Monkey, and also finding a lot about Tartary in old books. Those two things I think have been my primary things for the last 6 months. So I haven't really progressed too much on the ancient weapons, but I do regularly find some few things that just add to the picture, but it's
Well,
not that. Well, I found one thing out, and there was this text to these lance weapons I remember showing you and Richard.
mm-hmm.
And this text I got translated. It was in Italian, and it both called these lance weapons for hydro guns. So neither wind or electricity or anything. The text specifically said that they were water guns, water pressure guns, both of them, which I found
And
interesting.
what's the deadly part? How does it work? I mean,
There wasn't any. It wasn't like it's that detailed. I'll have to ask Mike Oz, who had it translated for me or did the translation himself.
in Russia we have a bunch of those reconstructors that try to prove that something worked this or that way that officials tell you, and they just get the same material, the same type of thing, and rebuild it from scratch and try to show us like, look, it's working. And very often nothing really works, and so you just cannot explain something with official explanation.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And we have, also this text here where it talks about a shooting spear, which I would think is something akin to this, because this would normally also be called a spear, and this one shoots, so this is a shooting spear, I would say they have called it. And they say it's pretty powerful, because if you can replace one of these guys with 6 musketeers. So I'd say that's a pretty powerful weapon. They say that this is, or something very similar to this. But yeah, the weapons thing, I haven't really found too much more on. It's an interesting topic, of course, but I would love to ask someone working on a museum or so, or someone who has, I don't know, experience with medieval weaponry somehow. I don't know.
Well,
Um,
we have the weapon, so-called weaponry in the Kremlin. I'm gonna go there pretty much soon and try to film what's there, but because people say there's a bunch of those examples. But people went there before me, and nobody actually found anything like specifically that could be proven as a medieval weapon. All they just proclaim something medieval, and that's it, because it's in perfect condition, doesn't have any scratches, it doesn't have any marks that it was like used in a battle or something. Because when you use something in a battle, you often get all those, you know, if it's armor, you get all those bumps or little scratches, and not little scratches. Maybe you can be stabbed or something, who knows, and you're gonna have some holes inside, but nothing like this. It's just perfect condition of everything. So
right.
except maybe from those swords and that they actually excavated from the ground, and they show it's like rusty, something like this. So this is what is not in perfect condition, but the rest of the collection is in perfect condition, and it's like I wonder how they were containing all this stuff for years during all these times, because if you have something like from the first century, how can you contain it through 20 centuries without any rust, anything like this? I don't know.
Yeah, that's also a very good point. A lot of the photos I see of supposed old cannons, some of them rust away if they're left to themselves, of course. And it's very funny that some of them also end up looking a lot like tree stumps when they rust really, really a long time. They kind of look like if they get into the earth a bit, they could actually look a little bit like a tree stump if you don't take a closer look. So that's I think that's worth mentioning, how some of these things really transmute in the earth and through time. But I wanted to show you this, Philip. This was a recent find of mine, which is a really good debunk. It's from a German book, and this book is from 1694. So you have someone taking off in the air with what looks to be balloons, right? So a sailing ship, and it's approximately 30 years before the Brazilian Gusmão is doing his experiments in the Brazilian court, where he's showing Jesuits and other learned men that you can use these balloons, hot air balloons, to take flight. But they didn't have a man on his demonstration, so he was only demonstrating that it was possible. And then 60 years after that, you have the Montgolfier brothers, right, in France. So this is nearly 100 years before the official history says that the Montgolfier brothers took a man up in the air with a hot air balloon. And this isn't even a hot air balloon. This is probably helium. And that shows a very, very high technical skill of chemistry to be able to isolate the helium and do a construction like that. So this is busting official history, this little book I found. 1694.
Yeah, a bunch of those mythologies and fairy tales that contain the knowledge about some airships, like somebody traveling in air, and all those towers all around the world, just alone standing towers, not alone standing towers, looks like a parking spot for those airships. And this is the only reason you can build something very tall and without any windows or something like this. So I don't know, it doesn't look very very decent to be a defensive towers, but maybe they were due purpose, and for those who were containing the the fuel and the food and the water for those who arrive, and they could be closing the tower. So that's why it looks like a defensive tower, but actually it's just a tower to the easiest way to do it comfortable way, and bring all the supplies that you need to the top, and then just load it to the ship. So I think it's just docking devices. All those towers that we see around just were docking devices for all those airships. Russian mythology is full of those stories. I mean,
It would make sense.
Yeah. So
to need to get up to a higher level of elevation because if you had to take the ship down to the ground every time you need to get new passengers on, that would be potentially dangerous, I think. So it'd be
And it's
good to have them.
ecological, and
Yeah.
it's less pollutant anything, because if you're not blowing up or something, like you have some extreme situation, it's totally ecological. You don't have
Hmm.
any pollution. And I don't know about those zeppelins and stuff that we had in the beginning of 20th century, but that also
Oh, I've
probably.
seen photos where you did the same thing with the Zeppelins. They had like a mooring tower where they would moor the Zeppelin at the nose of the Zeppelin, and then they would anchor it like you would anchor a boat to the side of that tower, and then people would, yeah, go on board like that. So I'm definitely seeing a repeating cycle of history in that photo.
Yeah, it's because it just cannot just pop out of nowhere. This technology of zeppelins. I mean, something was before zeppelins, and we know it's air balloons, but something was before air balloons, and that might be the
Hmm.
airships. So,
Right.
and air balloons became like more personal way of something like crazy. An airship could be controlled, and that's the difference between air balloon and airship, because air balloon is less controlled than it could be like some airship with some different type of transportation principles, not just air, but levitating and controlling the flow of the the direction, I'd say.
Right. Do you also think, Philip, there was a time in more recent history where air balloons were more personal and that it was more, let's say, common for a family or a private trip if you wanted to take your own air balloon and fly around to places that you want to see?
Yeah, I
Because this
think
is
I think they
kind
could.
of like what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, I think they were more aware of how things are going on in the air, and so because you just cannot just float in the balloon, you have to have somebody who's has like a rope, because he has to secure that you won't like fly away very very well
Mm,
and stuff like this. So I have friends that doing this air balloon business in Moscow district here, and just all the bunch of tourists every day, and they just I think they directing it by just lowering higher or going lower, and they catch the wind. They know at what height is the wind in what direction, and they just
mm,
levitate. And if you don't have enough time for those who paid it, so they don't want to be like stuck in the air, and they don't want to pay more, so you just have to drag them way back. So I mean, those people who were traveling those air balloons by personal, they definitely knew it, because they were more informed of that. Because I totally don't know what is going on in the air.
they had, I've seen on a lot of old books that even in mainstream old books that old people used to have meteorological devices on their homes. Like a lot of the spires we see used to be repurposed as meteorological devices, so they would have readings on the weather through their homes, right? Barometers and all sorts of other types, to read the weather conditions. And so I guess that was more, people were more in tune with the general weather conditions because they were being their own meteorologists at home.
Yeah, they probably.
Um, but I wanted to point out something in this picture, which is rather interesting. This is the, looks like the common American flag, and this does not. I think this is the civilian flag,
Yeah,
the so-called
yeah,
peace flag,
yeah. You're
and that
right.
this is a Chinese stamp of the early 1800s. So if this civilian peace flag was there, and this is real America depicted by the Chinese, um, this is basically also, I think, changing American history. Not take that too seriously because this is only a stamp. But could there have been a time in the 1800s where this flag was like, where you're seeing this reality with this flag also, and this is the commercial flag they take with them when they're flying because perhaps this is commerce.
So, air balloons and civil flag. Yeah, that's a good information, because I wonder what year was this postcard. And
Yeah, I'll have to find the link in the long list of links I have. But I remember it being the early 1800s. And also, for some of these stamps, there are no dates and no information. which is also very interesting.
I was trying to research the banknotes, and I couldn't find those banknotes. In the early like 20s, 30s, there were a bunch of
Yeah, I
banknotes in
remember
every
that.
town. So, and I wonder if they had like a peacetime. So maybe that was even before the 20s. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe there was I would think this is before mud flood and in a peacetime, and you see the civilian flag here, and this air-based commerce. I would think this denotes, and I'm interested also in what those flags would be. Looks to be red and white stripes on the horizontal, and a cross, perhaps something Scottish. I don't know.
Maybe, maybe that's just just stripes because of or low resolution.
Yeah, yeah, it could be.
Just.
But yeah, also look at the architecture here. Also pretty fine. And I also notice also always these long masts. Even though they have flags on them, you'll see masts on top of buildings sometimes, or in front of buildings. And they have all these lines going up to them, and they just look like flag posts or masts, as you would have them on a ship. And there are a lot on top of old buildings, and I've always wondered why. And I'm reluctant to call them antiquitech, as Martin probably would. But I definitely wonder what type of purpose they served, other than just having a flag on them. Because it seems a little bit too much, and sometimes they will put them besides the building, and like in a courtyard where you couldn't even like see it from afar. So what purpose would the flag serve then? I don't know, but some speculate it could be some sort of electrostatic gatherer. I don't know.
Flag could be serving the wind direction first, and the speed of the wind, and the color of the flag, or certain flag can show the people around in a huge area who can visualize this flag that it shows some certain signal, like a black flag, or a little bit lower flag is like a some drama happened, maybe a bunch of people died or something, or if you see different flag, you understand your city is captured and stuff like this. So I mean, it's like a dress or ornament on a dress. People think it's just simple ornament, but it could be telling us a 3D story, which is full of different symbols, and we have to know all this background of each symbol to understand what it actually look. And we see the red flag, and we don't even understand that it could be just the presence of the descendants of an Empire of Ross, who had the red flag actually. So
and do you know what a red flag means to our common society? It means something. If you red flag something, it's oh, you're warned. It's a warning. And you also get the red card, and red means stop in traffic, right? Like there's a lot of bad connotations with red in society. And I've always wondered, and I think now it is part of the smear campaign.
red
And
is a law, and
Yeah.
I would say it's legalization of the law. So if you like call something red line, or I don't know, red color, it's similar to claiming something to be legal, and you have to obey. This is not your right, it's your obligation, I would say.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's the denotation of blood by the red color, and blood and law is a binding mechanism. So I can see your point there, but it has to be in law, and then you have
blood
the
is
legal
also serious.
system.
If you have blood, it's a blood. Claiming something with blood, it's like putting a stamp or signature in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with like in the maritime jurisdiction, everything is blue. So you have the red and blue there, red in law, and blue, the blue ink of the pen, and then you have the blood of the human in law. So there's like this weird duality between those two systems. But I
Well,
wanted to
I
show
would
you
say
this,
with
Philip, though.
just the blue color in that is just symbolizing that the blue colors are ruling the red colors. So that's why
Yeah,
the maritime law is above the red law.
yeah, yeah. I would think so. I also like how you, because I see a spectrum of the controllers. Like I call it like the higher dialectic, where I see like I don't remember how you call it. Like you could call it the the controller left or the controller right paradigm, right? You can call them conservative or liberals on the higher echelons, maybe more like an esoteric mystery religion, and then you have the left and the right politics of it. And I definitely see that spectrum, and I see them in the different agendas. And I like how you you put them on that four-player system. I find
Yeah,
it more nuanced than a lot of other people that just say it's all one entity wanting the same thing, because it doesn't look always like that, that it wants exactly the same thing. Um, but as you also point out, they can work together sometimes, right? Um,
yeah,
because sometimes they have the same common goal on certain topics.
yeah. Because their fight is just the Khan, right? Is just the general, the head top general. So. And
Yeah,
I think the emperor, um,
might have been a spiritual priest, because there's a Swedish text I have found, Philip, from the 1700s. It says that the high priest of Tartary, was the spiritual leader of all of Asia, and also the whole world. He was called the priest of all priests, and there wasn't even a mention of a Roman pope. It
so
was him. It was
that
called the Ortolomo.
yeah, ordo, that means the military or the troops leader. So the Khan himself, the Cham, he was called in the French website Gallica. We had that book about the French royal and the rest of the world royalty, and there was this Tartarian Grand Cham. They called Grand Cham. They didn't call him
Hmm.
Emperor. So the Emperor was equal to Grand Cham. So Grand Cham is like, the great general. So
It almost sounds like Grand Champion, and
yeah, 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 yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny how I've got some other text saying that Genghis Khan, as we know, his real name was Temujin, and Genghis Khan means perfect warrior.
Yeah,
So you have all these titles for a lot of people. So sometimes it's easy to get confused, like who is who and what does this mean, and all these Khans and Khanates.
of
Um,
course.
but Philip, are you seeing? Are
Mm-hmm.
you also seeing this?
Yep.
So this was a exposition in Anvers in France,
Mm-hmm.
or is it Belgium? That's Belgium. Sorry. And they were apparently having floating castles in the 1880s, and there were like these elevators going to and fro, and they could make it stay up there the whole day, and they would deflate this, and it would come down again.
Hmm. Interesting.
And isn't that interesting? It just piques your imagination as to what was really possible and what was done with hot air balloons. Yep, I found this very interesting.
Yeah, looks to be authentic at least. So
Yeah, yeah. As far as I can say, and as far as the standard of authenticity we have available to us, this is pretty good. Yes, there's a whole
1894,
back.
1889,
Yeah,
1894, something like this. So also late 1900s.
yeah. Always this era, right? Have you ever heard that there's this term for the 19th century that's called the long 19th century?
No, really?
Yeah. Oh, it's like this term where they explain away why so many things happened in the 19th century. It almost sounds like they're saying that the 19th century was actually stretched,